Look, building a startup is never easy. If you want to sustain impact, you got to be able to sustain your company. Oh my god, these people are so greedy. What would my children eat 10 years down the road? Will they still be able to enjoy rice like we do today? Ultimately, the final people who benefit from our work is all of us. Because this is about food security, we believe that economic growth is crucial to drive climate action, but you need positive climate action to sustain economic growth. So when we founded AgriG8, the personal reflection is if we were able and willing to spend time to educate the farmers, we should do the same to the lenders as well.
In today's Conversation for Impact, we have with us the CEO of AgriG8, David Chen, who co-founded Golden Sun Land, a certified B Corp operating in the rice value chain in Myanmar. In 2021, he co-founded AgriG8, an Agri-FinTech firm whose mission is to make investing in climate-resilient farming attractive for lenders. With more than 14 years of experience in the agriculture sector, David cares deeply about the farmers he has worked with, and AgriG8 provides solutions that address a market gap of funneling commercial capital to smallholder farmers with quantifiable environmental impacts. In this episode, we talk about AgriG8's mission to address some of United Nations Sustainability Development Goals, also known as UN SDGs, David's motivation in setting up AgriG8, and maintaining dignity for the people that AgriG8 aims to serve and to assist. Hi David, thanks so much for joining us today.
Hello, thank you for having me.
We are right now in a very turbulent time, and you being in the rice sector where food scarcity is a real problem in the world, and obviously food security is a problem in Singapore. What is the heart behind the founding of AgriG8? Actually, and also perhaps your background in rice farming.
So thank you for the introduction. And obviously from a commercial perspective and our entire business model, AgriG8 serves the lenders and the farmers. But if your question is about the heart of AgriG8, I think it goes back to what you mentioned just now about food security and rice being a crucial staple in our life. Rice feed half the global population. So while I started my journey in the rice sector, the driving factor changes. But I always joke that it changes as I grow older, it changes as my life circumstances change. When I first came in, it was because my dad was in the industry for close to 40 years. And I became really interested in it. Those first few years, I have this save the dolphin mechanism where, I'm just out there. I really want to make a difference at a farmer's life. So that's what's been keeping me going all this while. But later when I have a family, when I have kids, the motivation changed, but the action didn't. I mean, right now, all I can think of is what would my children eat 10 years down the road, 15 years down the road. And especially when scientists have already made it clear that by 2050, as the global population grows, there's definitely going to be a shortage of food. We're going to see increase in food price. Rice will therefore become a very sensitive crop, and it's going to be one crop where the impact is going to be amplified. So which is why I think about my kids 10 years down the road. How much would a bowl of rice cost at that point in time? Will they still be able to enjoy rice like we do today? So that's kind of really the heart of AgriG8.
Who does AgriG8 serve actually?
AgriG8 serve the farmers and serve the lenders because our main purpose is to be the bridge between them to move the much needed capital to drive sustainable agriculture transformation. So these are the people we serve. But if you really look at who we are helping, ultimately the final people who benefit from our work is all of us. Because this is about food security, this is about reducing the carbon emission from our agriculture produce. And specifically for the smallholder farmers that we serve at the moment, they contribute to about 70% of all the food supply. Right? So the ability to reduce the carbon emission from this 70% of food supply become a crucial factor towards our climate action, towards contribution to climate change as well. I think the biggest issue that we see right now today for the smallholder farmers they are both victims and contributors of climate change because they don't have the right resources to make any form of positive changes to their current practices. And eventually, if they continue business as usual, they will be impacted both environmentally and also financially. I've not met a farmer who doesn't know that the future is gloomy. But from a very simple human perspective, most of these farmers who I've met, their financial resources sometimes is not quite there. And for those who are living below the poverty line, their consideration understandably is more short term. It's more like putting food on table. If someone gets sick, there's sudden expenditure and stuff. So when we talk to them about, hey, this is going to happen 20 years down the road, 30 years down the road, do they care? They care, but it's just a very unfortunate situation where they don't have the mind space and effort to look that far ahead when they have
to solve problems right now.
Exactly, they have more immediate problems. So I guess it's the same for all of us, right? If we are ever put in the state where we have immediate problem to solve, it's really tough for us to think 10 steps ahead.
Just now you mentioned about climate change, and climate action is one of UNSGD's. How does UNSGD actually motivate the operations of AgriG8?
It's interesting when you mention the Sustainable Development Goals because there's so many of them, right? And throughout the last 14 years, I realized that the moment you are into this smallholder agriculture space, you can close one eye, you will hit half of them. But when we set up AgriG8, we wanted to be a lot more specific in what we believe in. So much so that right now AgriG8's logo, our official color is of SDG 8, which is about decent economic growth, and SDG 13, which is about climate action. Why these two specific? Because we believe that economic growth is crucial to drive climate action, but you need positive climate action to sustain economic growth. So for us, we see this in a loop. Everything else, such as no poverty, such as partnership, for example, they are all subset that contribute to the interaction between these two SDGs.
And they're also the byproduct.
Yes, yes, or they are a path that we have to take, right? Because in order to reach decent economic growth, you must get people out of poverty. You must get people out of poverty. Going back to what we we're talking about just now, out of their mindset so that they can think further, they can think bigger.
And in your recent interview that we read with Grow Asia Digital, part of the learning series, you mentioned that there is this example of how the modern rice transplanter is actually representing innovation, efficiency, productivity, right? But the farmers represent job losses. So it can be quite a controversial topic to mention. Do you mind sharing a little bit more about the insights of that piece that you wrote for them?
So there was a really funny incident. That was when I first went to Myanmar. By the time this rice transplanter has been used in many other countries already. It was first invented in Japan, I believe, and is widely used in Taiwan and even neighboring countries like Malaysia, Thailand. But for Myanmar at the point in time, it was very, very new. The reality is to use a transplanter, you require a lot less manpower on the field, and you can do the job of 20 men in a fraction of the time. But what it does represent simply for the farmers, as you have pointed out, is job losses. Because previously 20 men do the job, 20 men has job. Now 2 guys are required to operate the machine, 18 men don't have job. It's really a complicated situation because those jobs are technically not really good jobs as well. Right? But if we understand their culture a little bit better, if we understand their circumstances a little bit better, we realize that a job is a job to them. So that was actually the first lesson I learned, where when we go to a place, for example, from Singapore going to Myanmar, and the farmers there have been planting rice for decades. From their perspective, we know nothing about rice, and us trying to change how they operate drastically, we're going to destroy a lot of trust, and we will stop the conversation on the spot. So that was one incident where I realized that, okay, we need to put our obsession with efficiency aside. It is important, but it must coexist with the local culture. It must move in a pace that it doesn't cause them discomfort. Because this situation about job loss is actually a more complicated issue that cannot be solved by technology. Sometimes it's a whole ecosystem. The only reason why they care about the job because there aren't any job elsewhere. But definitely it's not a startup's position to create jobs everywhere so that we could introduce automation. So that's more of a greater agenda that everyone kind of need to pitch in. But what we can control and what we can do is to really respect their culture, understand where they come from, and find some form of compromise.
Right. And speaking of trust that you said about building with a farmer, I remember you were sharing with me before this podcast about this anecdote about the farmer actually came to you with his smartphone and then pointed out and asked you and questioned you, hey, why are you selling the rice more than I'm charging you for it? And so much more. Like, why do you do that? How did you respond to that? And was that an occasion that it actually broke the trust with the farmers in Myanmar?
I remember that happened in a small hotel in the Ayeyarwady region, Patain. And the farmer came to me and with our NGO partner translator. We don't speak each other's language, right? So he was speaking, I think, rather angrily, very, very dramatic. And then our poor translator, I think he was trying his best to kind of dilute the message a little bit, but I said it's okay, just tell me whatever he's saying. I was smiling the entire time because when I first went there and met this group of farmers, they would not eat at the same table with me. I don't think they necessarily dislike me, but I think they definitely don't trust an outsider or a foreigner who come in, don't speak the language, and attempt to provide them with some form of solution.
Right. The meeting was brokered by the NGO.
Yeah, so that was the first meeting, right? So we worked with them for almost a year before this conversation came about.
Okay.
And when this conversation came about, for me, it was a huge triumph because from not willing to share food with me, now you walked up to me and you are technically challenging authority because
engaging me.
Engaging, right?
Yeah.
So whatever it is, it means that from a social development perspective, we've done it. And exactly that's what he did. He went to, I think, one of our e-commerce and said, how come this price and you pay me this price? Why can't you pay me more? And, we put the farmers together at the table. We did a value chain. We kind of did like a value chain lecture, help them understand where the rice go and who take what cut. And finally, we did manage to come to an understanding. And I feel that session built a lot of trust between us and the farmers because they trust that we are willing to engage. We are transparent with them. Could we pay them a little bit more? Definitely. But could we pay them a little bit more and remain a profitable company? That might be a bit tough. So we kind of need to draw a firm line there because ultimately we are not a non-profit organization.
Right.
So I think that fine balance is very important. And I was told by a mentor that he said, I used to talk a lot more like an NGO, which sometimes might not sit so well with investors. But he reminded me that, look, if you want to sustain impact, you got to be able to sustain your company. And if you can't sustain your company, then this impact is not going to stay.
Right. We had a lot of conversations with social entrepreneurs about how, profits is actually very important in not just sustaining the company, but also bring the mission of the company forward with larger impact because money is resource, right?
That's right.
Yeah. And profits with purpose is always the goal to achieving success in the social entrepreneurship journey. Circling back to AgriG8. Okay, your thoughts on the industry's understanding of lending in the agriculture sector, especially for small holder farmers?
When we were part of the rice value chain, we were closer with the farmers. And every time we look at the lending conditions, we look at the interest rates. In some of our Southeast Asian countries, legalized interest rate can be as high as 20 to 30%.
Wow.
And without really understanding how the lenders function, we were always like, oh my God, these people are so greedy because this is so expensive. And we are talking about lending to some of the poorest people we know, right? And this doesn't make sense. It's only when we really reflect a little bit, and I had the honor of having a CFO on board. He used to be from a microfinance institution. And that's when he kind of gave me an education and said, look, you know why the interest rate is so high? Because ultimately between the lenders and the farmers, there were no understanding. The lenders don't necessarily understand this group of potential borrowers. So therefore,
the risk is higher.
The risk is higher. I would say the perceived risk is higher. And also every existing known method of doing credit rating and credit worthiness do not apply to this group of borrowers. This is how, in a situation where they have no access to this group of borrowers, they don't know how to appraise them properly, and they can't be assured of their investment, naturally lenders will react in a way to best protect their interest by increasing interest rate, by reducing the loan quantum, and also by introducing a somewhat inflexible repayment schedule. So when we founded AgriG8, the personal reflection is, if we were able and willing to spend time to educate the farmers, we should do the same to the lenders as well, right? Because while all the lenders, all the financial institutions were well established, but maybe they do not have the right expertise into the agriculture sector. And if you can help them understand the farmers better, help them with a loan product design, then we have a better chance of bringing this commercial capital to support the smallholder farmers.
Got it. And is there a positive outcome that you can share with our audience that AgriG8 has helped a particular farmer, let's say, to successfully broker a loan?
AgriG8 is very young, so we just we did a pilot last season. We had about 54 farmers, and we connected these 54 farmers with the lenders. So by kind of doing a pre-loan assessment, we look at the farmer's potential, we look at how much the farmers need, and we help the lenders develop the loan product. The end result is when the lender came in, it was a microfinance lender. Based on the services we have provided and based on the perception of risk reduction, they've actually reduced 5% in interest rate for the farmers.
Wow, okay.
From 30 to 25, I think it's a start, but definitely we want to do a lot more, because just a report that came out recently, I think just about 2% of green financing has gone to smallholder farmers. So we know that there's a need, there's a will, there's a demand. Someone just need to bridge this gap.
Yeah. And AgriG8 seems like the best, the better platform to be the bridge amongst these two groups of people.
I hope so. Because when we started this platform, none of the co-founders have a tech background, because we are going through a very tech approach, right? But I don't know whether you guys are a lot younger than me. Have you guys used Nokia phone before?
Yeah.
So Nokia
not
phones,
too young, not too
Nokia
young.
phones English slogan is connecting people.
Yeah.
But for some reason, the Chinese translation of that resonated a lot more. The Chinese translation of Nokia slogan is 科技以人为本. So basically what they're saying is how a tech is being developed and how a tech is being utilized should be based on how human beings behave.
Yeah.
So we feel that we have advantage because we, from years of working with the farmers, we understand their behavior, we understand what they need, we understand what works and what doesn't work. Then we shape technology around that, not the other way around.
Yeah. How do you address the farmers' literacy in tech, for example? I don't know, they could use a phone to come and confront you of the price, right?
Yeah.
You can go to Lazada. I'm sure there's some sort of financial as well as technical literacy.
Yeah.
How do they use your app? or engage with your ecosystem?
It varies. So if we look at official statistic, I think smartphone penetration rate in Southeast Asian region has only gone up and not
Yeah.
gone down. But high smartphone penetration rate does not mean high digital literacy rate. And one of the things that we observe on the ground is most of these farmers, when they have a smartphone, they don't use it for productive measures. They don't use it to do work.
Yeah.
They use it for entertainment. So that kind of shapes how we design our application.
Okay.
We want our application to feel more like a companion than a tool.
Like a game.
Like a game. Right? So that there's some tangible value. The tangible value can be anything, right? So for example, we spend time on social media because the value they bring to us sometimes is information, sometimes it's entertainment. Whatever we want the farmers to do, right? In this case, we like the farmers to change their farming practices. We like the farmers to keep a better record of their farm activities. They need to feel like there's something tangible as well. So access to finance is one, but we are also hoping to keep the farmers a little bit more entertained.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's also like speaking in the farmer's language as well, being empathetic towards their needs and then communicating accordingly. Tell us a little bit more about maintaining dignity for these farmers as well. Because previously you mentioned that, as a startup from a developed country, maybe their reception towards your ideas may not be that good.
Yep.
Because there is obviously a power in difference.
Yes.
Right. And so how do you mitigate that gap? And maintaining dignity for these farmers.
I think maintaining dignity is really important because we subconsciously carry this first world arrogance when we go down and speak with them. A couple of years ago, when one of the media went down to do a coverage of our work, we were really excited because it does bring a lot more
exposure. Yeah.
But when it was finally released, the title was horrible.
Right. It didn't speak the true essence of what you were trying to do.
So basically, it brought us back to the narrative that we are here to help you and save you, and we are better than you.
Okay.
It was bad.
Wow.
It was really bad.
Yeah.
And it really, I mean, the farmers don't watch them. Don't watch the show, so it's fine. But if they did, it would have derailed all the trust we have built.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we have always gone to them with the notion that we are equal because they are our food producers. And if they don't produce our food, we got no food, right?
Yeah.
So in what world, in what universe are we
saving them
better than them, right?
Yeah.
It's at best is equal because we are helping each other. We are codependent, right? So that's something that can only be cultivated through time. Through interacting with them, and it's very difficult to tell them that hey, you and I are equal. They don't believe that. You kind of need to do it through action.
We have a media problem with AgriG8. What other challenges have you faced running the company?
So like I said, AgriG8 is quite young. To be honest, we've been quite blessed since we set up AgriG8. I think that the topic we are looking at, inclusive finance, sustainable agriculture, that seemed to tick the boxes of many. But truth to be told, I think it is still an industry where it is highly admirable. But is it necessarily desirable for commercial investors? COVID has definitely impacted Golden Sunland, the company that we co-founded. Because Golden Sunland is more value chain on the ground. So Golden Sunland's exposure includes to political risks, and that includes foreign exchange, etc.
Yeah.
But I have to say, COVID actually accelerated AgriG8's growth because COVID has created a condition where we need to find different ways to engage and serve the farmers. We need to find better way to utilize technology. And from there, one thing lead to another, right? When we want to implement technology, we realize technology costs money. We understood that we're not going to get it from farmers. Therefore, we need to create revenue models. So on the personal front, COVID brought me back home. I was seldom home pre-COVID. But now things change because we have crafted this business model where we know what the farmers working with us are doing while sitting in the office here.
Mm.
Is it as good as being down in the field? I don't think so, but to a certain extent, I think it's still good to be part of the rice industry, even though I am currently staying in Singapore.
So, do you have other plans to expand AgriG8's exposure beyond the rice agriculture industry?
The decision to stick to rice for, I will say, at least the next 2-3 years, there are multiple considerations. The first consideration being I've been in rice sector for a very long time, deeply passionate about this. But from a more commercial consideration is right now, we do not see another competitor who specializes in this one product. And third, from an environmental impact perspective, in terms of man-made methane emission, everyone knows this funny thing about cow fat, right?
Yeah.
So the dairy industry is top. The next is actually rice.
Okay.
So it's one of the most impactful that we see. So with all this consideration, we are likely to stick with rice for a while. Obviously, there are interests in other crops as well, but I would like our team to decide where we go to next.
And in terms of this technology that you're building, any notable functions or features that you would like to share with our audience as well? Anything that separates you from other lending applications or out there in the market?
So right now, our value proposition to the farmers, Agri-FinTech, the agri part serves the farmers, and we don't intend to charge farmers. So we are giving a farmer a rather function-packed application. However, the UI UX will behave a little bit differently. So we are not out there to give them a lot of information. What we intend and vision to do is to just give them actionable items to nudge them along the way to switch to sustainable agriculture. In the past, what we have seen in the market is a lot of education material on application, teaching farmer how to do certain things. But there isn't call to action to get them to actually act on it.
Got it.
So we wanted to do just the call to action part. In the background, we're designing a more tailored farm advisory system based on remote sensing. We feel that particular part will be the game changer, but that does require quite a significant amount of data to get it to work. Right. So I feel that kind of is the biggest differentiating point for us to the farmers, that the app that we're designing is 100% according to their needs and leads to actionable items. So on the lender's perspective, actually, we are pushing we're creating a software as a service for lenders. And this software as a service is meant for lenders to easily browse through the potential borrowers. And these borrowers, namely the smallholder farmers, will be pre-accessed, pre-appraised. So all your KYC and everything will be done. So what we want to do is to make it easy for them to invest in this sector. This, I would say, is maybe Q3, Q4 work in 2023, because what's most urgent for us now is to get farmers on board, test out our hypothesis, and start building a machine learning approach.
So machine learning is such a big thing now, such a big world trend in the business world. What does it entail for the farmers, really? So
in order to collect the data set that's required, basically requires the farmers to enter data.
Correct.
Which then goes back to the application that we're designing for the farmers.
And do they actually enter data diligently, or that's where your gamification comes in, right?
Yes. Because if you really ask the farmers, what's the purpose of giving this group of people data? There's nothing tangible. So I think the challenge right now is again making it entertaining and also giving them tangible reason to give us the data.
Nice. And what's next for AgriG8 in the next 3 to 5 years in your vision?
Starting from end of this year, we are actually starting a regional trial. So that is kind of the game changer for us, the next big jump. Originally, we were targeting about 1,000 to 1,500 farmers from the 50 that we have done. But based on the projection and our discussion with regional partners, it looks like we can exceed the number quite dramatically.
Nice.
So right now, everyone in the team has this ride or die mentality, because we are definitely doing way above what we anticipated.
There's this adrenaline to get things going as well, right?
Yes, there is.
Yeah. Very exciting space that you are in now. Do you think you have kind of found your calling in life? The marrying a few aspects of your life, knowledge, and passion to help people as well, and blend it together into a workable, profitable business. Do you think you have found that good balance?
I think I found the right path.
Mm-hmm.
And whether everything you described just now comes true, well, we'll see in the next few years. But I have to say, from that perspective, I've been a really lucky person. Building a startup is never easy, and obviously there are challenges. So perhaps in terms of growth of resources, even among my peers, among my friends, I may not be the most advanced, but in terms of finding purpose, I think I was lucky that I got that quite early on in life. And it's, as you go along, as you talk to people, you realize that, hey, that's actually really, really valuable.
Yeah.
And to be able to do something you enjoy also get you over tough times.
I find that the journey that you're on now and the trajectory that's moving forward with AgriG8 is really exciting, especially for the next phase of expansion and growth in the region. So I really wish you all the best. And your team all the best as well. It's going to be a very exciting ride, I feel. Okay, so lastly, where can our audience find you and all your business online?
Hopefully by the time this podcast is up, our website will be ready.
Fantastic.
And currently we are preparing a white paper to be published by Q1 next year.
Okay.
This white paper is to help the general audience have a better understanding of the landscape that we operate in, to kind of elaborate the problem a little bit, to get people to be a bit more involved in these issues and these problems that we're trying to solve.
Wow, we've come to the end of our conversation. Really, thanks so much for your sharing. Learned a lot about your sector as well as your journey. And thank you so much for being so sporting with our conversation today.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. If you have enjoyed our conversation with David and want to learn more about the social impact space, please leave a comment, like, and subscribe to our channel on all platforms that this podcast is on, so that we can deliver new content to you. Epic Nation is a passion project created by the team at Epic Dialogue, a Singapore-based marketing agency that helps change-making businesses create social impact through our sustainability branding, communications, and digital marketing solutions.